This is the CHRILLCAST. I'm Chris.
And I'm Will.
Dan.
How do we find you, Dan?
What you do is you open a phone book. And, you can find me on YouTube, Nerd Talk. There are a couple of us out there, but if you look up, I believe, Nerd Talk and Halo, you should find me pretty easily. I'm on Twitter, at NerdTalkDan, so feel free to tweet at me.
Excellent. So what are we talking about today, Will?
We are talking about the demise of one of the most powerful systems of the 90s, the Sega Dreamcast. Although it was released in 98 in Japan and North America, it was released in 99 in Europe, so it's essentially 20 years old in October.
Wait. No. September 9th, 1999 in the U.S.
Oh. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. Still,
it does,
was released in 98 in Japan.
Because every time we get a 9 in the year, somebody starts a rumor of Sega Dreamcast 2. Alright? That happens a lot. The original release was 9/9/99. It was on purpose because it's such a ridiculous amount of 9s in the date that they thought it would be awesome to release on that date. And it worked initially, but the threat of the PS2 really killed the sales of the Dreamcast. Yes. Especially after they completely muffed up the Sega Saturn release.
Mm-hmm. Well, they had several muffed up releases before that. They had the 32X.
Let's start from the beginning here, Will. What was Sega's first foray into video games in the U.S.?
Right. I don't know, the Mega System? Mega Drive? Is that the first one?
The Mega is what they called... Sega Mega Drive is what they called the console in Japan and Europe.
The Genesis.
No, the Genesis was also not the first. That's the same as the Mega Drive.
I don't know what the first one is then. I know the Genesis is the big one.
Okay.
The one that ends up taking almost all of the market share from Nintendo.
It was the Sega Master System, Will.
Alright, I'll get there. That's way before me, man. I don't know that one.
Okay. As far as video game history is concerned,
I was prepared for the
it.
Dreamcast, okay?
So they released the Master System, and it sold okay in the U.S. It sold much better in other places. And then to follow that up, they wanted to directly compete with Nintendo. So they released the Sega Genesis. And the only reason it was called the Genesis over here, I believe the Mega Drive was a trademarked or copyrighted name already. So they couldn't call it the Mega Drive here. So they called it the Genesis here. Because you can see it's got two different names. The Mega Drive is what they called it in Japan and Europe. And then here it was called the Genesis. Okay. So the Genesis had a very long lifespan as far as video games are concerned. And to follow that up, there was an argument between Japan and North America as to how to release the next console. Yep. And they ended up with 3 iterations of the Genesis, 3 or 4 iterations, and then several iterations of the accessories, which allowed you to play more games. And one of those accessories was the 32X, and the other accessory was the Sega CD. And those two together could play Sega CD 32X games, which is it's ridiculous. I don't know how you would ever market that.
Yeah, you have the Power Tower.
Yeah, the Power Tower. It's better than the Atari Jaguar, though. Do you know what that one looks like? Have you ever seen the Atari Jaguar CD?
Mm-hmm.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay. It looks like, in the words of the angry video game nerd, a toilet spaceship.
Yes.
It's like the Jaguar throne. But anyways, so when they were marketing the Genesis, the 32X, within a year, or maybe it was 2, I'm not 100% on the timeline there. I could look it up, but I'm not going to. They released the Saturn after they told North Americans the 32X was the future. So
and at a secret release too, because they announced it. It was supposed to come out a couple months later, but they released it during E3.
And it was in stores already. It's already in stores. Go check. And some of the stores were taken off guard because they didn't have any stock. They were like, "What's the deal here, guys? Are we going to be able to sell this thing or not?" And so it left a bad taste in a lot of the businesses' mouths. And then I'm not 100%. Let me see. Saturn came out in 95, May 11th, 95, and I think E3 was in June. So it was already out when E3 happened. So everybody was taken off guard by that. And then the price was ridiculous. It was like, what, $400 or something?
Okay.
Yeah, $399. So then Sony comes up. That's actually how the Sony got their big push in the PS1. The guy from Sony saw that they were releasing the Saturn for $399, got up on stage and said the most famous quote ever, just $299, and walked away. That was it.
Jeez.
It's like one of the best moments in video game history, in my opinion.
Savage.
Just viral marketing. And so the stores were like, ooh, we'll scoop that up. And it really made people not respect the Sega brand because they rushed this console to market and they didn't do a good job supporting it.
Yeah, well, they didn't support several things. They didn't support the 32X, they didn't support the CD, and they didn't support the Saturn. So when the Dreamcast comes along, and it really is a great system with a lot of potential, people had already lost interest in Sega. So it was pretty much doomed from the start. Even though Microsoft actually helped them with this console.
Yeah, they did, and that's actually why a lot of the Dreamcast games got ported to the Xbox. And every time people talk about Microsoft and Sega in the same sentence, everybody gets excited thinking, ooh, is Microsoft finally going to finish the deal and take Sega on as part of their own company? It happens like every generation of consoles. Sega and Microsoft will have a meeting and people will start speculating, is this finally going to be the time when Sega and Microsoft merge and all the Sega franchises go to Microsoft? But
there was discussion that the Dreamcast games would play on the original Xbox.
That was part of the deal, I thought, because they used Windows CE on the Dreamcast.
Well, I don't know if it was ever officially part of the deal, but I know the president of Sega wanted it to be the case because he knew he was getting out of the console business, but he didn't want Dreamcast owners to be left in the dust. So
right. Owners of Dreamcast games, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Dan, being that you may have a little more experience with the Sega brand than either me or Will, I'm not sure what your experience is with Sega. What was your experience leading up to the Dreamcast?
Leading up with Sega specifically, Genesis was actually my first console.
Okay. So yeah, we're going good so far.
Yeah, it's a great system. Still is.
Mm-hmm.
Classic games, and it built very good brand loyalty. Started messing it up terribly, right? So
yeah.
They didn't support the Saturn, just like you said, and you can kind of tell a company's in a tailspin when they start releasing massive amounts of the accessories, as you mentioned. So I was very wary of the Dreamcast at that point. It had a lot of hype games, like Nintendo Power, not Nintendo Power, but a bunch of the game magazines at the time were filling out some good graphics. Oh, this is a Dreamcast, it's gonna be great, it's gonna be great. And it just got screwed over by the release of PS2, so tragic.
Yeah, I mean, Sony was basically putting out marketing saying, we know the Dreamcast is out, we know it's better than the PS1, but just wait, PS2's around the corner.
Yeah.
That was essentially their marketing strategy. And the Dreamcast still sold almost 10 million units, so it is commercially a failure for Sega, but it did sell well.
It probably paid for the production cost, but
I would
wasn't
say
enough.
You break even probably around 10 million units, I would think. But generally speaking, for Sega, this was the final nail in the coffin for their console business. And Sega has survived because they released their IPs on other consoles, like Sonic, obviously. Crazy Taxi's been on quite a few consoles. Shenmue just got Shenmue 3, even though I don't think Shenmue 3 is owned by Sega anymore.
I don't think so. It was a Kickstarter, wasn't it?
I think they gave the original creator rights over the Shenmue brand to continue the series because they respected him quite a bit. And I think there was probably some business deals in the background on that one too. But yeah, I mean, it's such a loss, in my opinion, to the industry. And anytime a major console player has to leave the market, it's not good. It's not a good thing, in my opinion. The competition is always a good thing. And the less brands you have, the less competition, the easier it is to implement these business strategies that are bad for consumers.
Losing Sega though gave way for Microsoft. I don't think if Sega was still there, Xbox would even be a thing. So, I mean, you can look at it as a positive from that perspective. I mean, I love Halo, so.
Well, speaking of Microsoft entering the console business because of this, what do you think Stadia is going to do to the existing console players out there?
I hope they crash and burn. In my personal opinion, I don't think it's going to do super well. I think that they will probably do really well for the first couple of years, and then people are going to realize that a subscription-based console just sucks up their money and kind of sucks. I don't think it's going to have a major impact. I think it's going to go the way of was it the Ouya? How do you pronounce that?
Ouya. But
Yeah,
the Ouya is
yeah.
different. I mean, it was a completely different.
I'm just saying it's going to go the same way, where people really liked it at first, and then it gets kind of faded, and now it's gone.
Actually, the most comparable older service to this one is probably Game Live, the Game Stick. You essentially had like an Android-based version of what this is. You had like a subscription model. You'd pay some money. You'd have access to their store. This is kind of more similar to Apple Arcade, but Arcade is way better implemented because you physically have the games on your hard drive or on your flash drive or whatever you have, versus this online only where, let's face it, a lot of us won't have the streaming capabilities to use it, and I think it's going to fall flat on its face. I just don't see this being... If I had an Xbox on my home network, right, then I can play my Xbox anywhere in the house, or my PS4 anywhere in the house, and it's completely dependent on the hardware in my house, versus this Google Stadia, where no matter where I try to play it in my house, it's completely dependent on my speed of my internet connection versus the hardware in my house. Now, if I want to leave my house, everything's dependent on the speed of your connection, no matter which service you use. But if I just want to play sitting at my couch on my phone while everybody else is using the TV, the Xbox is going to work 9 times out of 10 versus Google Stadia, where if my internet connection is being fought between the streaming of Netflix and my streaming to my phone, it's not going to work really that well, especially if I got 4K going on. So I just don't think Stadia is a well thought out strategy at all.
What's your opinions, Dan? Do you think it's going to have an impact on the industry?
I think it seems more like a novelty than not. I mean, as you guys mentioned about the internet speed, maybe in about let's say 10 years when 5G is more common, like just all over the place, and you can get a signal anywhere, it would be viable, but I'm not sure about it. So wait, I don't know much about it. It's just the controller, basically, and that connects to the cloud, or?
I mean, it has a little connector, but yeah, it's essentially just, it connects to the cloud. You stream every single game. You don't own any of the games, and yet you still have to pay $60 for it. And you have to, on top of that, you have to pay for the subscription to be able to play the games. So
technically, the ownership though is the same on anything you buy now. It's just a license to play the game. So Google's licenses just aren't on physical discs.
Yeah, but I only buy used games, so that means that I mean, it rolls me out immediately because I like going and getting, a game for $20 off, or getting it like a $5 game from a previous generation and playing on my current console. I can't do that with the Stadia.
No, you can't.
I don't want it.
I mean, even Steam is a better proposition than Stadia, and like them or hate them, but Steam will let you import games that you did not buy through Steam off of a physical disc and allow you to collect Steam achievements, which I think is really neat. Kind of like the Xbox One will let you collect old games achievements, like the 360 games. I think you can still collect achievements from those, right?
Yep, definitely can.
So, Google, I hope Stadia falls flat on its face. No offense.
All right, so I realize this is going long, but one more point.
Okay.
Which which company do you think is most likely to be the next Sega as far as getting out of the console business?
I think 100%. The only one right now even leaning towards that is Xbox, which is sad. Because they're leaning towards their services being on the Switch, on PC, And even if they release a physical console, that's not where the main focus is. Their main focus is their services. So I can't guess anybody but Microsoft at this point in time. But I think they'll still release a physical box just to have that impact on the market. Like you, Dan?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. Nintendo's just too much of a powerhouse now with their novelties consoles, and then you have PlayStation, which won't die. It has worldwide appeal.
Right.
But I mean, we were talking about it before. My Xbox is just not popular where I am, which means that Microsoft is not a universally accepted gaming platform, I suppose. And just in the way the market is moving, I'm just not sure it's gonna have much legs. So we'll find out when the Xbox Red comes out,
Scarlet.
how it does.
Yeah.
Scarlet.
Yeah. Scarlet. Xbox Red Ring.
Xbox Johansson.
Yeah, but I think hopefully as long as they keep pumping out Halo games and maybe they'll port it over to PlayStation, I'll be happy because at least I can play Halo. But I don't know.
Okay. Well, with that, I'm Chris.
I'm Will.
Dan.
Wait for it. Dan.
And we will see you
On the next CHRILLCAST.